Good morning, y'all. We are going to be in 2nd Peter today. Normally we're in Genesis, but I'm away from my normal Bible at the moment. So we're going to go to our normal weekend study, Sunday study, which is in 2nd Peter. By the way, we're on YouTube at Preach Facts. Now, guys, let me go ahead and bust into this before I give you the breakdown. Okay? Of what happened. Well, let me just go ahead and tell you guys, this is big. So I'm on my live last night, and all I do in my free time is listen to debates between atheists and Christians. I don't really get into the whole inside religion debates. I'm really just against the atheists, and I'm not against them, but that's where my battle lies between the God and no God thing. So, and I'm in the trenches, okay? So what happened was, dude pulls up, because my title says that I'm offering salvation here on the channel, on the live. So if anybody pulls up, they need a rededication, they need a salvation. We're going to try to do that for them, even though that's not really scriptural to do that. I know somebody did it for me, so it worked for me. So that's why I have that up on my live. So dude comes up, he's like, "Oh, we're ready for a debate." He said, "Oh, you open for questions?" Sure, we love that. That's what I love. So I got two other guys up there on the channel, and they're talking. They're not really getting to any meat on the bone. So I'm like, "Y'all get out the way, man. Let me talk to this guy." So boom, we ended up talking for a couple hours, me and dude. And I've heard about this place called the Deconstruction Zone, because that's basically what he led me to. He said, "Go check this out." Apparently that's his biggest gun. And the only topic that he brought up was, the only topic the dude brought up, I don't know if y'all are concerned about your faith. I am. But it's almost like these guys are brainwashed, okay? They're under a spell. I mean, seriously, because listen, dude was like, his only argument is that I heard is like, okay, if God is an unjust God, God is unjust and unfair because of all the stuff that happened in the Old Testament, you know, with all the people that got smited and killed and stuff like that. And, you know, then they want to pull the Old Testament, and they say, well, if God is all fair and all good, that can't be him because of exhibit A, B, and C and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, cool. I said, I'm not disagreeing with you. And I never claimed that God was all good and fair, because just because you're looking at a situation, you don't really see the bigger picture. And I said, if God wants to come out and slap somebody for no reason, he can do that. That's God. So that, I said, okay, I see what you're saying. Let's move on to the next topic. There was no next topic. It was just, that's it. So that was interesting to me, that there was no next topic. I'm like, okay, that's exhibit A. God is unfair, God is unjust. That's your topic. Okay, let's go on to the next one. And he really didn't say that was his only topic. He just never went on to a next one. I was like, dude, I'm not disagreeing with you. I still have my God. I'm good. So I told him, what your problem is that you're trying to do the impossible. You're looking for a finite answer, a complete answer, that something by nature is not completable. God is always on the move. He's always going into eternity. He can't be pinned down. So by nature, he can't be proven, because of just the sheer vastness, and whatever, you know. And you can't use any type of philosophical language or examples for that, because they demand a boxed in answer. 1 + 1 = 2. They demand a complete boxed in answer. And I said, well, you can't do that. But nevertheless, he pointed me in this direction. And I said, how can you describe eternity when we're going into it? Because that's really my main selling point. He said, well, for one, eternity is going into eternity, and that's that. I said, no, you're not answering the question because you can't answer the question. You don't know the details because we haven't gone there yet. That didn't register. I'm like, okay. So my point was that you're looking for a finite answer. You're demanding an answer that can't be given. And I think that's going to resonate with him later. But that's really the deal breaker for me, my own little theology on that. And I've been thought about that. Okay, so I was like, boom. So I pulled up and I went to his channel, The Deconstruction Zone. Now he said, you got to go check out The Deconstruction Zone. And I heard about that. It's apparently a TikTok or a YouTube where they do this atheist talk. And they're real condescending. They're real pompous. And I've only listened, I pulled it up on YouTube thinking I'm like, dude, my faith is going to get shot down. He's going to say something that's going to totally waver my faith. No, I went there and they got this thing up there that says God is imaginary. God is imaginary. And they're laughing. Oh, we're going to have a Christian barbecue. We're going to roast these guys, blah, 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 blah. And I've been listening for an hour and a half now. And don't get me wrong, I'm not biased against these guys. Show me what you got. Let's hear what you got. Okay, so far, the only thing I've heard, they're not saying nothing. They're not saying nothing, so we're in a good position, man, where we're at. They're not saying nothing. If all the atheists can say is that all they can say is, you can't show me God right now, so he's not real. That's it? That's your case? That's ridiculous, man. And you say it with such a staunch position. Like that's, and okay. And when you come up, they try to beat you with words. It's not just, they're not the only ones that do that. Another Christian guy does that. He's trying to beat you in a debating stance. I'm not like that. Let's hear all your angles. Let's hear all your stuff. But don't sit here and tell me that because of God is unfair or fair, meeting the criteria to be good or fair or all loving is going to be a good enough criteria to disprove God or be a substantial limb to rest on. That's not doing anything for me. Okay. So I went to the channel and I'm a fan now because they're building my faith up, because they're sitting there basically in a staunch position on nothing. They're not saying nothing. They acknowledge scripture. They don't talk about anything about that, about the Bible in its entirety and what you think about that. What they say is, they say, okay, we have the prophecies, let's go over them. The prophecies aren't lining up because, Bible prophecy can change rapidly throughout a verse. One line might be talking about one era, another line might be talking about the moment. So in one line, you might be talking about a specific a specific detail, like it was a raining day or whatever. A dude was wearing a white shirt, for example. And another purpose, you might be talking about, the national climate or something. So, you might be talking about a kingdom. So it can go from broad to specific in prophecy, and that's just how God is. That's how the prophecy works. Okay, and I'm not trying to pin down any specific prophecy, but you can't sit here and tell a prophecy that it has to be, that's not fitting a guideline because it's bouncing from specific to broad, or back and forth, or personal to impersonal, or generally speaking. So what they say is, well, no, that's not substantiated because of it's doing that. So that's the only position I've heard, and that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous position. And the dudes that are coming up there are the dude that came up. Oh, and one dude came up with a vision. He said, oh, I saw a phoenix in the sky. And he was just saying that God gave him some affirmation. He saw something in the sky. And they said, no, we cannot count that because you didn't write that down. beforehand and see it. So I'm just saying, you can't do that. If somebody has a vision, let them have a vision. Don't sit here and tell that man that that's not credible. At least in some degree that you're making a statement that you had a vision. Okay. If nothing else, let it be a verbally noted that you had a vision. Okay, and note that. The guy has nothing to gain. He's not getting paid by saying that. If the guy has a vision, have a vision. So they made fun of him. Oh, he's on drugs, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So I'm listening to stuff, this deconstruction zone, and they're not saying anything. Oh, they're talking about creation and evolution and all that, but they're not saying anything. So I'm very happy with our position on that, with this atheist thing. Because they're not saying anything. Where's your proof that God is imaginary? What are you saying? They're not saying nothing. But I'm going to listen to the case. But guys, it's looking really good. I don't know if they're under a spell or what. But if your only position is that I have to show you God is real, that's not a case, man. That's nothing. God has made his case. He has come down over the centuries, and I told him like this. He said, what is your best evidence? He asked me the same thing. What happens is people get burned. He asked me the same question that they're using on that channel. It's a live recording they do. And they'll kick you in a heartbeat if you're not careful. Okay. So I said, here's my faith. I said, okay, based upon all the stuff in the world, the Jews and the Catholics, here's where I get my decision from. Based upon the Jews and the Catholics being a real people today in a real nation, and based upon there's a church on every corner, and based upon New Testament theology, and the way they're speaking, and the tone, and the emphaticness, and just I've used my sense to make my best judgment whether this is true or not, whether or not they're lying. Okay. That's where I get my proof. I'm using my best judgment to say, hold on, this is not made up. Judging by the tone of the New Testament, it's too authentic, it's too genuine, just in the way it's said. Not necessarily the facts. The facts are good too, but just the way that they've gone about it, and looking at historical evidence of people getting martyred and stuff like that, and just people just really going to the death for this thing, and not to mention the Christ and the resurrection and everything and all that. I said, based upon all the evidence and the historical evidence, and Wesley Huff and all the people that have studied this, Lee Strobel, everybody, church on every corner, I said, based upon all the evidence that I have, that's where I get, not to mention my personal affirmations, that's where I get my judgment. That's where I get my decision to say that God is real. I said, not to mention, and there wasn't really nothing said about that. Okay. And that's fine. But that's a good place where I'm saying that is a strong point that I've made my own personal assessment on that. That's where I get my judgment. Okay. It doesn't have to be a exhibit A. So he didn't say anything about that. I said, okay. I said, well, how do you feel about these facts that are in the world, that we have the Jews, we have the Catholics, we have all a church in every corner? How do you feel about that? What is your stance on that? Not really. It's not really anything said. And I hope he watches this video. He's following now. I mean, I've messaged him. I told him about the stuff that this channel he told me to go see. So the argument was, well, God isn't fair, blah, 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 blah. You wouldn't want somebody to slap you type of deal. Is that classified as fair? And he wanted me to say yes. I said, yes, that is unfair. He said, I told you. See, I won. Okay. I didn't really see, it's not deal breaker for me because the God that I know will slap somebody in a heartbeat. I said, if they had bad stuff happen to them, they had it coming. That's what I said. More than likely. I said, hey, if 99% of the world's people go to hell and 1% go to heaven, I said, who can judge God? I said, that's God. I said, the God that I know is not all nice and candy. I said, he's provided a way, he's fair, he's provided a way out, he's given us the information we need. Okay? That's what makes him fair. He's more than fair. Okay? He's more than fair. So I said that. Nothing really, we didn't really get any ground on that. So I said, man, I agree with you. I agree with you that God is not all fair. But there's a bigger picture involved. There's a bigger picture involved. I said, we don't know everything. You're examining the situation from your limited perspective. And I'm not disagreeing with him. I'm in full agreement with everything he's saying. Other than that's evidence. So I said, bro, I'm really a closet atheist. To tell the truth, because I'm always studying this stuff. Although I'm not. I'd go to death right now for the cross if I had to. Because I said with my stance, there's a payload. There's implications. He said, what reason do I have to believe in God? I said, how about not going to hell? Didn't say anything. I mean, that's a good reason. You're not going to hell if you follow the church. I said, how do you feel about that? And he said, what reason do I have? I said, how about not going to hell? It got kind of quiet for a second, you know. So I said, with my ideology and my reason to choose God and the Lord, it's not just a historical thing. There's implications. There's strings attached. There's strings attached to my choice. And there's strings attached to his, but he doesn't believe that. So that's what happened with that. So that's my new mission, is to listen to this stuff. Because when the guys come up on the channel, it's called Destruction Zone. I don't recommend you guys go there unless you're in a position of faith, because they're saying it with confidence, and they're not really preaching. They're just standing there. They're just standing there. I mean, they're just sitting there and they're taking questions, and there's solid stuff coming up. Solid stuff is coming up against them. But you can't tell me a prophecy is not a prophecy because it goes from general to specific and stuff like that. And because somebody has a vision and they didn't write it down beforehand, that's a valid way to throw out their vision. I understand you weren't there to see the vision, but don't tell the man he didn't have a vision. It's not a valid thing that he had it. It is admissible testimony. That's admissible testimony. Okay, that's admissible. Okay, it's not something you throw out just because he didn't write it down. Just testimony alone is admissible. Okay? End of story. Testimony alone is admissible. Okay, that's just in a regular court. So, don't sit here and tell me anything else. So, when prophecy, and the sad part is they're doing the Lord's work and they don't know it. I guarantee it. Their whole design for the channel, the Deconstruction Zone, I'm watching it. People are coming up. And they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything. They're not saying anything. So guys, I'm feeling really confident about this faith that we have here. Because I was sure that they were going to say something that's just going to really just shake my faith. But there is really nothing there so far. But I'm all ears. I'm biased. I don't want to be right. I mean, I don't. It's one of those things. Okay, if you have something against it, let's hear it. Bring me to reality. But admit your position. Admit your position that it's just a show. It's just a reach. Okay. I told him God has made his declaration. He came out, he said, I'm God. He told us all the necessary, applicable, relevant stuff that's going to happen to us. To the utmost detail. He's given us the itinerary. He's coming, it's like a flight plan. Okay, you got to go to Hawaii, but guess what? You got to stop here to refuel. We got to do this. You're going to have 2 meals, la da 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 da. First class seats. You might be in coach, blah 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 blah. God has given us the full itinerary of what's going to happen. Period. End of story. And it's good. It's good stuff that we got going on. And bad stuff that's going on too. So God has given us the full itinerary of what's going to happen. And the full directions and criteria that you need to get there. Or not make it. But to sit here and throw out the whole itinerary and tell the captain and the flight service what they can and can't do is basically what you're doing. So, I'm not really interested in the different religions and stuff like that, about how they're looking at it. I'm more on the atheist thing, and it's really getting ridiculous because they keep saying the same stuff. Oh, well, if God wasn't real, la 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 la, you can't trust the Gospels, blah 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 blah. You can't use any type of hypothetical arguments. You can't use any type of philosophical arguments or illustrations. That's not admissible for them. So it's really getting kind of interesting because they really box themselves into a corner. Now, without saying too much, I'm still listening to this channel they have called the Deconstruction Zone. And I think I see what's going to happen is. What's going to happen is I'm going to say, hey, I can't demonstrate God for you right here. I'm not even going to try. But if they have something to say, I'm going to hear it. They haven't said one thing about discrediting the Bible. They read the Bible. They acknowledge the Bible. So the most healthy and honest position I've heard was that it might be true. That they could be wrong. Okay? I don't feel that way about God. It's not that we could be wrong. We're not wrong at all. That's not how that works. So we're going to push on to 2 Peter right now. I just wanted to give you the update on that because I had to go on like a 2-hour drive last night. Because that's what I do, guys. All day long, I study stuff. Up-to-date stuff. If you guys have any cool stuff, or cool guys that mean anything, I'll look it out. I'll look at it. But you got to be careful what you look at. Now, let's go. I wanted to give you the update on that we're looking real strong. I'm in the trenches for y'all, man. I'm looking at the toughest, most up-to-date stuff that I can find as far as atheist Christians and atheist debates. And so far, I found nothing with any substance against the Christ and the Word. I found nothing with any substance, which means I can focus more on me. I'm working on me. Because I keep looking. I'm not finding anything against us. in our position. So I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, realizing there's nothing out there against us. But I'm going to give them time to show me something. They're not showing me anything. So I'm confident that we've taken the best choice. We've taken the best position. We're in the winning circle. But it doesn't stop there. Now it's on to what we have to do. Okay? With ourselves. Now we have to work on ourselves. This is just the starting line. Let me do the trenches work to find out we're in the right place, and we are. Because I'll be the first one to throw in the towel. Hey, just checked out. There's nothing we can say about that. There's nothing we can do. Okay? So, I'll be the first one to throw in the towel. But by definition, you can't prove God that something that by definition is infinite, eternal, all that stuff by definition. Okay, you can't box in, but you can't. You're demanding the exact opposite that is possible for God. If somebody says, "Show me a mountain," show me that mountain. There's absolutely no way that you could take in that mountain by a view. So, look at it like you're looking at a huge mountain and you're like 5 feet from it. You're going to see a rock wall in front of you. You're not going to see the entirety of the mountain. You're just going to see a piece. And let's say you back up 30 feet from it. It's going into the sky. You can't see nothing. Okay? So, my point is that you can't see the entirety of God. Even if you flew a helicopter over the mountain is too massive. You'd be missing stuff down at the bottom at that point. So you can't take in the entirety of the situation just because of the sheer massiveness of it. You can say, "Oh, there's a mountain in front of me," but you don't really see what's going on. You just see a rock face in front of you. Okay, and my point is that some things are too massive to take in. Okay, and that's my point about the God thing, and that's how that works. If you're looking at the world, if I tell you that if we're standing over here in the United States and I say, "Okay, all right, boss man, so look, I'm going to let y'all go. This wasn't our best video, but I just had to let y'all go. It's a short one today, okay? It's a short one today, okay? So I'm going to let y'all go. I'm in the trenches. I'm fighting the atheists. Okay, so y'all have a good day. We're on YouTube at Preach Facts, and we'll see you tomorrow. Okay.